Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here, and we're going to watch part 2 of the mega panel via the Union of the Unwanted. Hope you enjoy. Buckle up and get ready to make sense of the madness.
They recently came out to say that, and that's terrible. We have so few civil liberties as it is, but ACLU, I was a card-carrying member when I was very young, back when they cared about civil liberties. Now they don't care at all about it. Otherwise, they would have been camped outside the prisons with the January 6th people. But Sam's exactly right. The right and the left both. I don't know hardly anybody today that cares about civil liberties, and it's a shame. But I don't want to be sympathizing with people who are especially gang members, but you can't just say a guy's a gang member because he's got a lot of tattoos and he's Hispanic. And that's the problem. It's the exact same thing that happened after 9/11. His name is Muhammad. He looks the part. You can't have a system like that.
Well, it's fine. It's fine to deport them, but just Jesus Christ, you have to put them in a fucking prison for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I think the reality here, though, is that the previous administration and the administrations before it have created such a situation in America where there is complete unfettered immigration, people pouring in from not just Mexico. And it's fun to talk about the Mexicans that we're targeting, but realistically, they're like Chinese nationals. There's Africans coming in from the entire world. They're coming through South America. So we have this huge problem. How do you battle? And I'm not for eroding more of our civil liberties, although I think there is a conversation to be had of, well, what's really left here? We just talked about how do we get justice? And I'm like, I don't even know what that looks like anymore in this country. It seems like a fruitless act. Like the Constitution, great document. It's not written for the people that live here right now. So it's not a black pill. I'm not trying to go full Jason Bermas, although I love the points that he made. But it's like, maybe it's time for something new. Whatever we have here, we cannot recover it. And trying to recover it, as you're seeing what Trump is doing with, the El Salvador prisons, is like, that's not going to work. So there has to be something that we can do.
Top, I love you. I love you, but my God, man, if you think that the Constitution isn't an adequate document for the people today, just imagine what the people today would replace it with. It would be disastrous. Yeah. I am going to hold on to that dead document until my fingers fall off.
Exactly.
Seriously, I don't see any hope that we have some constitutional convention and things get improved, that we get more civil liberties. Like,
first thing it's gone is the Bill of Rights.
Right.
That's the first thing.
Gun rights gone, speech rights gone instantly.
But because the entire country has eroded, because what fundamentally held the country together, or at least what it was based upon, no longer exists here. So now we have to talk about, demographics. Now you have to talk about culture. And it's like these things that we're sort of touching on this is why I'm more focused on the culture, the idea of the culture, because as that moves, the rest of it follows. We can talk about these larger ideas and the nuance, and that's great, but it doesn't matter. The culture is gone.
But here's the whole thing I gotta say. Sorry, cut you off, but I think at some point we have to be almost like parents, where we have to do things for people that don't understand what's happening right now and telling them, nope, this isn't, nope, why? Because I said so, that's why. And if we allow retards to decide the Constitution, people, and I have a friend on the Masked Singer that I love with all my heart, and I'm glad he's cashing checks the whole time, but that show is for the dumbest of dumb. And that is who's allowed to vote in our I mean, when I know the man on the street videos, they're sifting through 100 videos to find 2 that make people look like retards. But if you get enough of those 2 retards, now we're entering a dangerous time. So the question becomes, in a realistic world, who's allowed to decide what should be the new Constitution?
Well,
and it will never be you and me.
I brought this up to Robbie the Fire Bernstein, and he called me retarded. Half right. But I said this last election was an IQ test. Okay? If you voted for Kamala Harris, I'm okay with taking your right to vote away for the next decade or so. It's simple as that. Right, you have failed. I'll let you vote. Well, you can go to the polls and put it in, but it goes right in the garbage. Now, I'm not saying that because you voted for Trump that you are smart, but there were 2 choices here. And one was more right than the other.
But brother, let me say this. Just like with free speech, if you make the qualifications, no one gets to judge how dumb I am, because most people think I'm totally stupid. Let me agree with you. Hold on. Let me agree with you for a second about the Constitution. And
please do. I love when you agree with me. Go ahead. Great.
Because at the end of the day, when I get pinned to the wall, Yeah, obviously I'm not a right or left guy. A lot of people like to throw me in the libertarian sect. I'm not one of those people either. I'd say at best I am a constitutionalist. And why is that? Because of the perfectly imperfect document, right? So you have this document that knows it's going to get things wrong, but it sets up a set of checks and balances where the executive, the judicial, and the legislative have equal rights. Okay, now post-World War II, forget about it. The executive within the executive really becomes so strong that there's this fourth branch that really supersedes everything. And that's a big, 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 big problem. Now, at the same time, we still do have some kind of a semblance of checks and balances, especially when we have states' rights, right? And that's another thing to cling on to. Nothing was more prevalent during the COVID 1984 nightmare to me than leaving New York, and I was in upstate New York, and it was still nightmarish. Traveling the country, and I now live in Iowa. You know, I saw firsthand the differences in policies, etc. The problem is, again, that we haven't had that executive accountability. The last time is Iran-Contra, that we no longer expect it. That doesn't mean we toss it out, because if we toss it out, really, we're taking away the best defense for the little guy. And what do I mean by that? The Constitution is the most anti-collectivist document out there because it's not a majority. Everybody talks about a democracy. But if you really want to do it, you need 2/3 and then 3/4 to amend the Constitution. That's why we haven't had a constitutional amendment in a very long time. But these people were smart enough to realize, hey, we're probably not going to be able to fix, say, this slavery situation right now after the Civil War. But maybe we should put something in there for that, and something in there for women to be able to vote again. And we're not perfect, but if
Mistake.
That was a horrible.
Yeah, dude, you lost me there.
Yeah, I mean,
guys, listen.
any,
as much as I like to have a chauvinistic good time, let me say this.
Yeah.
You know, I in one of my only interactions with Rogan many years ago, this is like 2000, I don't know, 9 or 10. I'm in a hotel room and we were talking about politicians. And I brought up Cynthia McKinney. Now, Cynthia McKinney was a black congresswoman out of Georgia. She was the only person to stand up to the military-industrial complex on human trafficking through DynCorp and question 9/11. She did both to Rumsfeld. She's in my film Fabled Enemies and Loose Change Final Cut. I said that to him, and he, at that point, said, oh, I just don't think women can run it at the top. They're not ruthless enough. He's come around on that and publicly spoken on it. I would just say this. Maybe people don't know history, but, Cleopatra, how about the last queen of England? These are some vicious cunts. Like, they're the not fucking around gang. Like, women can do this job as viciously, sometimes more viciously. So, again, we have to realize that the Constitution is really a pro-humanity document.
Well, let me just say, though, I agree with the viciousness of a woman, but it doesn't come naturally to women to be masculine. What you're describing is masculinity. So if
do we want viciousness? Why would we want viciousness?
I'm just saying that's where he thought it would lack in warfare. Like, that was his big thing, is we don't want a leader at the helm in here.
Yeah. Well, in fact, female politicians are often overly vicious because they're trying to compensate for the perception of weakness. So I totally disagree with this assessment, though. And by the way, the Constitution doesn't mention democracy even once.
We can do without them. Plus, they bleed once a month. Please continue, Jason.
No, I get it. Listen, I love South Park too. One of my favorite very early jokes that they recycled. Right? All I'm saying is, like, I'm very happy to have Tulsi Gabbard in DNI right now. Is she perfect? No, but I can't name another person that I would rather have there. Can anybody else say somebody?
Thomas Massey, Ron Paul.
All right, Thomas Massey, Ron Paul in there. I'd like to see them in Secretary of State and maybe, the Department of Defense in Hegseth's spot. I'm with you. Listen,
you're doing a good job at pointing out exceptions. Exceptions don't break the rule. That would be like me saying that the GOP is on my side because Thomas Massey's a Republican. It'd be like, no, obviously he's the exception to the rule. Most GOP members are scum of the earth.
But Massey also wants to actually balance the budget, and he wants a CR every month. There's so many things outside of, again, that's why Kentucky's great. They've got both those guys. Like Kristi Noem, not perfect, but as far as being part of Homeland Security, if we're going to have Homeland Security, probably her. She's not great,
but there's a reason. There's a reason that women were allowed to vote, and it's because of Woodrow Wilson. He vehemently opposed it, and then realized right after, like, oh, these guys make 80% of the consumer decisions in America. They're very emotional. We can control them. Let's push this. They did, and here we are. Now you look at like female voting habits, and yes, there are a lot of good ones. My wife, she's not going to vote like, most females, but it's like 80%. If we just left it up to them, this would be an entirely blue state, blue country, and there would be no turning it around. So that's just the reality of it. How you doing, Mel K? Yeah. She just came in and we're hating women today. This is a woman bash club.
I agree with you 1,000%.
Oh yeah, I remember she said that.
I'm not on their side.
Mel's on our side. Don't even sweat it.
It's sad. It's a sad generalization.
You have to realize that the 19th Amendment coincides with the progressive era. The progressive era ultimately destroyed not just the country but the Constitution. It rolled out the income tax. It just destroyed everything. So
yeah, but it wasn't like
correlation
this in the
causation.
90s. But in the 90s, women weren't like, something happened terrible. Something terrible happened to women in college.
Academia. Yep.
And you look at that, exactly, but also all these degrees on nothing, all these women's classes. I mean, look, let's just be honest. These women that are out there, you look at the numbers, it's the far left progressive, like malignant narcissists that really just live their lives in terms of themselves. I know a lot of these people, and I'm telling you that
how many would you say insane?
Happened.
I think maybe 1/3 of them are insane. What do you think, Mel? I don't. You know better than me.
Well, I think a lot of them were medicated from very young, and I don't think they know enough about it. And I think probably by the time I was in 7th or 8th grade, almost everyone I knew was on drugs. I mean,
they're on psych meds, and they've done studies on it that conservative women tend to report being happier than progressive women. And the truth is, there's also kind of this this kind of thing where people just think I'm going to be divorced with kids, or divorced and alone and have a dog, and this like it's all going to work out like shit anyways. Yeah. There's a lot of people, particularly on the left and mostly on the left, that have no problem with lying to the next generation to just get them to get in line. And it really sucks.
Well, we watched that. Wait, one sec. We watched that Christine Blasey Ford lie to the whole world. Everyone and all the women were supposed to believe all women after the faux Me Too movement. Let me tell you something. Real people that are honest, men, women, who cares, saw all that as manipulation on the largest scale. And the women that went along with it are the women that are still leading the way. And they're leading these women to miserable lives and full of anger, and they have to go on retreats and yell at tops of mountains, and then
primal screaming therapy.
That's what this entire thing is about, right? It's like, this is marketing. My main job is like, I do merchandising and I'm selling, and I'm like, okay, I have this product. How do I target the audience that I want? Well, these people have figured out how to target the audience that they want, the largest audience that buys the most shit. And now that, I mean, not now, but that's rolled over into politics long ago. So the manipulation, it just seems like it's much easier to, and again, manipulation might not be the right word, but persuade, to confuse, to convince the female population, and that's half of them. So it's like, they've already got that on lock.
Keep in mind too, 58% of women under 45 years old are on prescription medication. Now, that's not all psychotropics, but still, I mean, it's an astronomical number that's on the pharma treadmill. And I don't think that's an accident. I think they've absolutely broken young women's minds through college, through the media, through Hollywood. And it's just been destructive. It's been destructive to civilization because they have the right to vote too.
And I think culturally, whether it's right or wrong or not, but they've done studies to show, as Top Lobster mentioned, that if just women voted, every state would be blue. If just men voted, every state would be red. That's a huge dichotomy, and that culturally, what a clash. Because we're not
also
looking
not
at
having kids.
We don't have the same interest, and not having kids. Yeah,
not having kids. Having children tends to make you more conservative. And now that they're not having kids, like Brian Callen used to say all the time, it's like they're going to put that motherly instinct onto something, and it's either going to be the child or society. So they just instantly believe in this, like, trans kids and their lives are at risk. And you just see mothers who actually have had kids fall for it as well, and like take their children who are 5 and just flip them all about, and goes against every single instinct you have. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my kids have said like crazy stuff, and you just go, well, that's what a 3-year-old says, that's what a 4-year-old said, that's what a 5-year-old says. And these parents are like, oh my God, did you hear that she likes to play with Tonka trucks? Well, that means she's a boy, and we have to start treating her like a boy. And you know, we through society have kind of kneecapped fathers. It's very hard for fathers to do anything because the courts are against them, culture's against them, society's against them, and
divorce courts. My God.
Yeah, it's just like good luck when you're like, oh, you have 50-50 in custody, and then the mom's like, he's a boy, and you're like, she's not a boy. She wants, let her grow up, and then the courts are like, oh, sorry, the mom wants that.
They'll jail a father for that in some states in America and in Canada too. It's getting very serious. I don't think people pay attention to that, but in California, where I fled, I'm a refugee from California. I talked to a guy, I think his name was Harrison, and his son was taken away from him, and like they're now pushing laws to try and make it a prosecutable offense if you don't use the pronouns of your child, if all that shit. It's pure madness. But I don't think that any of this is an accident. I think that they want women to believe that they don't need a man, they don't need kids, because in that void, what fills it? The state.
And I'm probably the only one here old enough to remember, but back in the old days, television was completely different, and so were movies. They were geared to men. That's why you had tons of westerns and detective shows and private eyes. My dad controlled the TV. My mom watched soap operas. That was it. Television for years now has been completely catered to women. That's all it is. You can feel your testosterone level drop as you're watching one of these sitcoms or something now, because they're not meant for you. And the problem is that they've obviously learned that the female is much more susceptible to this programming. So all the indoctrination is towards the female. That's why Sam mentioned about the transgenders and everything. I've never seen one case where a father wants to turn his kid into the other sex and the mother objects. Never. It's always the mother. Sometimes the father's on board too, because he's nuts too. But I mean, most of the time it's the mother, and the father tries to be reasonable and then he loses in court. But this is a huge cultural clash. And now we have a young generation that isn't, largely not having sex, or not having, maybe they're having, and they're not getting married, they're not having babies. And, eventually, and they obviously they believe different things.
It's something like half of young men haven't had sex in the past year.
You guys act like you don't know what bussy is. Come on. Catch up with the times, bro.
Well, I coach my daughter and my sons in multiple sports, and more I'm seeing like girl teams. I just saw it this past weekend. My daughter had a game, and I saw a girls team who playing, I believe, before or after us, and they had a boy on the team, and I see it over and over again. We were just at a tournament in Albany in New York like a month ago. Same thing. One of the teams in the girls division, playing against girls, it was a boy, and then we went to the referee and we're like, hey, is that a boy? And he's like, yeah, we thought the same thing. So we asked the parents, and they said it's a girl. I'm like, you idiot. Of course they think it's a girl. That's why they have them signed up on the girls team, but it's not a girl. It's a boy. And this is like more and more.
Ricky, New York is captive, bro. It's over. It's over there. You were in upstate New York. That's the last time I was there. It is the norm. Let me tell you something. Yeah. In my small town,
more women.
I mean, people think that because this administration's there, they're not doing the transition surgeries to kids. I can assure you that they are. So in this college town, which was on its way out prior to COVID in 1984, but this was the final nail in the coffin where they destroyed the rest of the town. There's no longer as many people attending both the state school or the private college. They're down there. They brought in this money from Cuomo they'd been promised for years, and they destroyed the parking lot downtown where most people parked. They were building houses for artisans. No, they weren't. It's heroin addicts. This town was also the first place that had the Suboxone vending machines there, okay? So let me tell you what they do at the local hospital. Their main gig is they usually have daily overdoses, up to 3 a day, but no less than 5 a week. And then they are pioneering the transgender surgeries there for children.
Bolsheviks.
And let me say this, you know, when I first moved my nieces there, they had this issue with the deranged woman and her soft husband and the boy child in a dress being referred to as a girl. Lasted about 18 months. The kid came out of it. I don't know why, but he didn't progress. He wanted to be a boy. I was just disturbed and disgusted that was part of it. But now the surgery has taken me aback because, I mean, you're permanently mutilating kids. And let me say this. You know, you mentioned Brian Callen. Brian was good enough to give me tickets to one of his shows after I did Conspiracy. What the hell is it called? Why can't I think of it?
How dare you?
I know it's
Conspiracy Social Club, you faggot.
Conspiracy Social Club with Sam. And I'm not, you know, we were at the Funny Bone in Albany, New York. They'd revamped the mall. And two of the staff, not one, two of the staff, they couldn't have been more than 25, were either transitioning or trying to transition. And you could see, you know, the woman trying to have the beard and be a man. And it's usually that, by the way. I see more of that. I know that you saw the little boy, but I see more women transitioning into men. So, you know, most of the stuff is lopping their breasts off. But, I mean, that is just so grotesque and
That's
deranged
insanity,
to me. You know, I just don't know.
But it's also taking you know, hormones to assist with the transition or prevent puberty, which ultimately reduces their chance of ever being able to reproduce. It's assuming that they grow out of it and they don't ultimately get a hysterectomy or something wild like that. But I think it all plays in the depopulation agenda. And once again, this is all a product of, well, you don't have a husband, you don't have a wife, you don't have kids. What do you have? Well, might as well have an all-encompassing, all-powerful state. And I really think that the powers that be have realized that, like, yeah, if you believe in God, if you have a family, if you have kids, you probably don't really care about having an overpowerful state.
I'm sorry. I had a good friend of mine kind of confide in me a story about a family member who transitioned, and they were just like, you know, it's just like everyone's super supportive. We love them. That was great. They, you know, and he had decided that he was, because he was going to go to med school at one time, just start to read all these like studies being done. And he just saw some really harsh effects of taking this. Because, you know, I've had debates with my progressive friends in Hollywood about this. It's like, if I watch a commercial for, you know, some kind of aspirin or something you take for a headache, and it says that, you know, the side effects are suicidal thoughts. What are you going to do when you completely change your body chemistry? And I got yelled at and all that stuff. But he was like, so this family member started transitioning, and she just went completely nuts. And when she tried to, you know, look for help within the community that was accepting her and the new her, because she was part of all these Facebook groups and all that stuff, when she said she was having trouble, she needed help, they completely ostracized her. They completely froze her out, had nothing to do with her. Now that she's in like a hospital permanently, almost permanently, that this very nice guy is paying for now because he's doing well in life, but nobody will help him. We see it all the time. We just saw, I think it was in Iowa, it happened where they were going to talk to detransitioners, and all these trans activists came up with their fat diabetes asses and started dancing in the middle of the thing, so no one could talk and no one could get anything done. So that's what you're up against.
Well, we also have to look at the entire American Psychiatric Association and America Psychological Association, and even the medical schools. They have all gone super, super woke. Even if you look at the American Bar Association, and when I say woke, I'm not saying it as a put down. I'm saying it more as a matter of everything that they're supposed to be doing, they're not doing. And all the things that allow for standards or any of that. And I think what's happening is that, well, I was told by a psychiatrist on my show, they're not even trying to diagnose these kids anymore. They're going right to transgender. They're going right to They want, they're going right to this gender medicine on the first meeting of a child that's, freaking out at 7, 8 years old. It has something to do with the therapists. And this was all in a lot of executive orders under the last two, under the Biden administration, but also before that. But I am telling you, something happened to the therapists. Because when we were all kids, everyone here is probably either 10 years older, 10 years younger, or my age. You went to a therapist and you told them how you felt and all that. Well, what's happened is now you go to a therapist and they start asking you about your gender almost right away. And it's part of the entire licensing thing. They put all these anti-bias and DEI stuff in. So when a kid actually is having behavioral problems at, 9, 10, like boys do, or girls at 12, 13 years old, instead of taking them to them and seeing if they have a diagnosis that is real or even a diagnosis that isn't treatable, like sociopathy or something, they still go through a list of things. Now they're going into therapy in a lot of these schools with the first question being about gender. And I just think we have to also look at that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that, I do agree there is a depopulation agenda, but, there used to be, I think there's also a big pharma agenda. These become lifelong clients, essentially. They're going to be on medication for the rest of their lives. And in 10, 20 years ago, the questions were much more geared towards getting people on, right? The kids were being put on Ritalin, Adderall, that type of thing. But the doctors were still steering them. They were asking questions that pushed them in that direction.
Do you have a hard time focusing in class? Well, you may need cocaine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's only one molecule away. We call it something different, but don't worry. It'll be totally safe. You'll be totally fine. No side effects at all.
Now when you're coming down off that Ritalin high, do you feel down? Well, now we have an antidepressant. Oh, once you have the antidepressant, maybe you have an anxiety disorder that we can deal with.
And throw in some Ambien.
You may have suicide thoughts with the antidepressant medication.
But you can't sleep.
Have some that.
Yeah.
It was called Prozac Nation, right? That for a reason. Yeah. But I want to say that I do think also the DEI and all of those measures were definitely in the whole field of counseling, psychology, psychiatry. I actually have a friend, this is a personal story, who was told in order to keep her license in the state that before she saw any patient, she had to tell them that she had both white privilege and thin privilege. And so before she went in, every time she went into work and a new patient came in, that's what she had to tell them. She ended up, renouncing her license. She's like, I'm not going to keep up this. Yeah.
That's insane. It's almost like, it's just like the cherry on top of what is like a really deep problem. Like I read the Bible, in the book of Revelation, it says that you're going to deceive the nations through your sorcery. And sorcery is the root word for that would be, pharmakia. That's like from the Greek. So when I look around at the entire nation that is sedated in some form or fashion by you name the drug, we just named off Ritalin as if it's like at least they were talking to the people. Ritalin is basically methamphetamine. What kind of portal is that opening in some little kid's brain and never closing? I don't know, man. But this country from probably from like the 50s. We've been obsessed with this this chemical imbalance in the brain, or at least like it's just drugging the entire country from the studies of Andrija Puharic on. We have never recovered. It has become widespread. And instead of
we're living in Huxley's world.
Yeah. Instead of an MK Ultra project, which would have been like, get a John in a whorehouse, drug them. It's like now everybody's drugged. Everyone's in front of a screen MK Ultraing themselves. So it's a fun time.
Study what they were doing in San Francisco during the 60s. They were the San Francisco Haight-Ashbury was basically a free range open air laboratory in which they were seeing the effects of crystal meth and LSD on people. And now look at what all these tech people are doing. They're all on Adderall and they're microdosing. It's the exact
back farther.
The CIA was the biggest LSD. Alan Delson's the biggest CIA LSD dealer in the world back then. The CIA had a whorehouse, a brothel in San Francisco, that they
Operation
lured
Midnight?
Johns to, and they gave him LSD, and then they observed them through one of those one-way mirrors. And your tax dollars are paying for that.
Oh, and they absolutely fucking destroyed Jack Ruby's mind when he was in prison waiting to testify. I don't think that was an accident either. I think that was MK all day.
But this has been a problem since the early 1900s, late 1800s even. I mean, Mad in America, I'm sure you guys are familiar with that book, Mad in America. It's amazing history of, bad science, bad medicine, and the mistreatment of the mentally ill. I mean, this obsession with the mentally ill and all these diagnoses go back like 150 years. It's hard to believe.
Well, it seems it seems as if like these were like smaller structured experiments where they have their group, their target group, and they're doing these things to them. But like the more I look into this, especially the work of Andrija Puharich, I start to think that this experiment that was suspended, it just looks widespread. When I look at the vaccine schedule and what's going on with the children, it goes to the big thing now is the telepathy tapes, right? That's like, oh, these kids have telepathy. Everyone's nonverbal autistic. It's like, well, man, what happened here? It looked like you were experimenting on this kind of stuff. Like what's that show called?
Stargate?
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things.
Well, Project Stargate
and the YouTube stream now. I'm just warning you. Top is going there. Go ahead.
Oh,
Top.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna roll it back a little bit, but that was called Project Stargate, but now we have Project Stargate again. It's just kind of like under a different name.
2.0, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like
ended. It never ended.
It never ended, and what it looks like to me is like America is an open air, not just San Francisco, Sam. America in general is an open air testing facility where, what do they say? 1 in 20 kids have autism now. 1 in 20 boys. 1 in 32 children in general have it. And it's like, well, what are they learning from this? Why are you experimenting on kids like this? Why are we so worried about telepathy? Why are we worried about telekinesis, Elon Musk? Why are you, dude, it's crazy out here. I don't know what to think. Jason's looking at me like I'm crazy. So
it was 1 in 12 boys in California. Yeah. I mean, that,
I think it's worse than that. I mean, most of the young people I know are autistic. It seems like it's 50-50.
Well, this is why the libertarian movement is blossoming, baby.
Gosh, God help us.
Now,
and good luck getting people that don't want to. Yeah, good luck getting everyone who doesn't believe in authority to work together. That's the whole thing.
Well, the thing is that they recognize the autism statistics have changed so much to 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 30 or whatever. And when RFK Jr. talked about that, you said he was crazy. They recognize it's a reality, but everyone just kind of shrugged. So we didn't recognize it before. What do you mean? I mean, I was alive back then. Nobody acted. I didn't see one kid ever that acted autistic. I was around. Maybe they hid them somewhere.
There's just tens of millions of autists that were going undiagnosed. That's what they want you to believe.
This is why I'm like, I kind of asked the question, like, well, what's left? Like, all right, we fix all these problems. You deport all the immigrants. This is a huge problem staring Americans in the face. When the data comes out, they're not even going to be able to look at it and accept it. Like, oh, my kid is this way because I've made decisions that have caused this. And whether you knew or not, it doesn't matter. You're living with the consequences. It's like, I don't know where America goes from there. I don't know if there is one. The Constitution, I don't know what that does to help people, because the whole structure, the foundation of the structure is just completely crumbled and eroded. So like, where do we go?
I'll tell you where it goes. It's the same reaction to the COVID jab. You have all these psychopaths running around saying, you got to get your 3rd, your 4th, your 5th, otherwise you want to kill my grandmother, blah, 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 blah,
Exactly.
blah. Then it comes out, 5 seconds later, oh, I was wrong about everything. Did they reflect? Did they have any fucking come to Jesus moment? Did they apologize? Did they think for a second that maybe I got it wrong and maybe I need to totally change my worldview? Nothing. They didn't do anything differently. So if it comes out that, they gave all their kids autism, I don't think they'd fucking blink. That's my honest opinion.
I don't think they can, right?
Yeah. Now they have the Arcturus project, and the chair of it is the guy who is the overhead for Operation Warp Speed, and they have in it is Star Technology, and I'm just like the names really struck me because like the Arcturians and the Star Seeds. Is this really where they're going with this mRNA stuff? But
it's what they did with the space program.
Of course, it's all under the guise that they're going to cure cancer, and they have AI precision medicine now, and so everybody has to line up.
Life expectancy is dropping. Orwell said that the war is not meant to be won; it's meant to be continuous. And he might as well said the problems are not meant to be solved; they're meant to be continuous. They're sometimes replaced by new problems, but autism is just now it's accepted. Nobody questions, and you think you're crazy if it's the vaccines or what is in the food. How could that be? It just is, just like cancer was unknown before 1900. If you look back, I've
unknown.
talked about the studies that were done on mummies in antiquity. They couldn't find any evidence of cancer. It didn't exist really. But nobody questioned it. Suddenly it's the scourge of the 20th century, and they made up a bunch of bullshit about Grant and people like in the past dying of cancer, which is nonsense. That was not said at the time. But this is what they do. They rewrite history constantly. They're throwing things down the memory hole. Winston Smith, that was his job in 1984.
This is how you know that the medical field has been captured, is because if you were to ever actually do a study as to like improvement or statistical charting of these diagnoses, right? What diseases are getting better? Like anxiety skyrocketing, depression skyrocketing, suicidal ideation skyrocketing, like everything skyrocketing. Same with giving statins out for heart attacks. It's like none of this stuff is having a positive effect, and yet they never relent. And they only double down, and then connect this same dot. This is the same progressive ideology that went into critical race theory, where it's like we're going to obsess over racial differences and identitarianism. But what is the outcome? More racial differences, more identitarianism, more racism. There's none of this is actually helping us. All of it is hurting us, and no one seems to be reflecting on it. It's maddening.
I don't want to. I want to kind of steer the conversation on another topic real quick because I can't be here today. I have to go get my kids in a little bit. But I want to ask, so we have giant power outages through all these countries in Europe. One in particular is Spain, which just denied arms deals to Israel. And, that's what the Israelis at the highest levels of government has always said, like, if Israel falls, the world falls. And I forget what the doctrine is, because they have so many doctrines that are all playing out right now, whether it's the Daya doctrine or the mass Hannibal and all that stuff. But what is your thoughts on that? Do you think there's any relation possibly at all between that suddenly there's all this power outages? Any thoughts?
Before we talk about this topic we haven't talked about yet, and then that's a joke because we opened up with Top Lobster has to leave. First of all, I apologize for Don Jeffries. He used a hard ER. It's lobster with an A. It's not
yeah,
lobster.
Please.
Oh, I'm
guys.
sorry, God. I guess
no, it's okay. Just never do it again.
I know it's not good to use the ER, the hard ER.
Don, I give you the permission. You have the ER pass.
He's a certified wigger, so it's fine. Yeah.
But, Top Lobster's got to leave, so I just want to give him a second to just plug.
Oh yes, thank you. I kind of want to address Sam too. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. But if you haven't seen Sam's latest episode on, I think you did the Talmud, the guy who broke down the Talmud. Holy shit, man! What a banger! And I feel like it does relate to this as far as like the way he juxtaposed it against the Talmud against the Constitution. I feel like there's a conversation to be had here. But yeah, I got to run because my kids are yelling at me. Catch me on Twitter, Top Lobster. If you guys like what I said here and you don't think I'm a complete asshole like Steve Wilkos does, we're doing an event called Bohemian Grove. It's in Leesburg, Florida, June 20th and the 21st. Clint will be there. Sam will be there performing. Owen Benjamin will be there. Nephilim Death Squad, Tower Gang, Cult of Conspiracy. I mean, just people are just constantly coming out. We have a bunch of other secret guests too as well. So the tickets will be on sale for the general public on Friday. We already sold like a good amount of them to my Patreon members. Keep an eye out for that. Follow me and be there. We want to see you live so we could do
that event will sell out. It's going to be amazing. I also do Dangerous Retards with Top and Raven, aka David.
It's Dangerous Real Talk Real Dudes. So.
Excuse me. Yes, that's what I meant. It's an acronym, so you're allowed to say it on YouTube. RTRD. But yeah, check us out.
Thank you, guys. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
I see you.
Man, that guy's a lunatic.
I love that he showed up. It's just such a funny thing. So that's my question. Do you think, because I mean, we have Klaus Schwab, and I love that story. Oh, we found him. He was committing corruption within the World Economic Forum. Well, we gotta get rid of him. Like, dude, the guy's built on corruption. That's why he's where he is.
I don't know if is anybody here? I just heard about this power outage thing, and I'm a little worried. Like I said, my daughter is supposed to fly to London, I think Thursday or Friday, so that concerns me. But what is their explanation for it? How are they even providing an explanation for 5 different countries losing power?
Anomalous atmospheric phenomena. I mean, no, seriously.
Global warming.
That was a legitimate
climate change.
That sounds like an EMP to me.
Climate change.
Sounds like a solar coronal
Solar
mass
flare,
ejection. I don't know.
Yeah, solar flare, EMP, could be a lot of things. I mean, then I've also seen reports that some of the politicians are now saying that they think it may be, cyber hackers. At this point, anything's possible. The truth is, Europe is like collapsing under its own socialist weight, so it could just be the fact that their system is breaking down too. So I don't want to jump to the most fun conspiracies because it could just be that simple. I don't know though.
Yeah, but they are saying that it's atmospheric.
Yeah, and they are saying it's beginning to return.
That's the narrative anyway.
Yeah, and now it's beginning to return. So finally, I think within the last hour, Portugal and Spain, I think, are starting to get power back. So we'll see. We'll see what the narrative says. But
the Spaniards were siestaing anyway, so they didn't even notice.
Yeah.
The scary part is how fragile we are. Like even without the power outage, we now, and I'm in the prairies. And we had our system went down the other day, and I realized how fragile it is. Because everything is connected to the same system. There's no longer the house line and a different internet connection and a different cable connection. So our thing went down, and you lost communication with everybody. No texting, no TV, no anything. I mean, I could have had an AM radio, I guess, because we still had power, but we didn't have communication with anything. So it's pretty freaky how they've combined everything into these services now that are just a one-stop shop for all your outside communication.
The grid, yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that. Well, I think some of you guys have also talked to him, Dr. Robert Epstein, and he talked about on my show, and I think on Rogan's show, and probably on some of your shows, about that time that Google turned off the internet for a little bit just to see if they could do it.
Yeah.
And so when all this happened, that's kind of what I thought of. And like I said, my mother was watching Portuguese news, and that's where she told me about it. She's like, hey, you hear what's going on in Europe? And then I put on American news, and they weren't talking about it, weirdly enough. I'm just like, what? Like planes are down. The whole country is in a blackout, and not even just that country. It's Spain, France, and Portugal, and it's not making headline news. So it was kind of weird, if it was some type of CIA Mossad operation, who knows? It would make sense that you got the media not to talk about it, so to not point any fingers. I mean, that kind of connects some dots a little bit.
Well, that's what makes me think that it's something bigger, but it could be any number of things. That's how crazy this world is. We are in the full order out of chaos. It could literally be any number of things. It could even be us, because frankly, I think we're negotiating with ourselves in the Ukraine. And whatever's going on there is not going well. They're preparing for war in Europe. Russia's meeting with North Korea to thank them for helping them fight. I mean, crazy stuff is going on. It could be literally anyone. We're living in their movie, and we're allowing it. It's just, we're at a point where we have to understand that it looks like the EU never gave up, and they are moving forward with their domination. And I mean them and their banking partners and their UN partners, and by any means necessary. So I look at it today and I say, oh, the cyber polygon pandemic's here. Maybe, maybe not. But I'm just saying it could be anything. There are many, many theaters of war and a lot of players. And the 8 billion of us really aren't that important to the people playing the game at the top, is what it feels like.
It helps then set up the idea then that Elon Musk as Destro can then fly in and provide. You guys, I mean, I'm hiding out in northern New Mexico anymore. I saw a year or so ago, because it's big, beautiful skies here. You can see lots of stars, lots of all the constellations, all that. And we were out one night and looked up and saw this perfect line. And, I was having beers and smoking, and, you elbowed buddy. It was like, you're seeing this too. It was like, as much as I would love to believe we're witnessing some amazing fucking psychedelic sky phenomenon, it's goddamn Elon and his military satellites. So they'll sometimes, I guess, when they're traveling to somewhere else. So we just happen to catch the star train or I forget exactly what they maybe call it. But weathermen will talk about it on local broadcasts sometimes, that it's kind of a normal thing.
I think I see it. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but I live right near Mar-a-Lago. You would fly over me, and I think I see that here. And I'm sure that they're but it's just like that. It's like lights on both sides. I mean, they are satellites, obviously, but they're obviously protecting this airspace.
Folks, the conversation continued over at the Union of the Unwanted with Ricky Varandas for quite a bit after that. And let me just say this. It is always an honor and a pleasure to be part of that forum. Such heavy hitters in those really open discussions of ideas. Sam Tripoli is an absolute beast out there, a content monster. Obviously, tinfoil hat is the big one, but really on top of that, you can find him at Conspiracy Social Club, Broken Simulation, Doom Scrolling. He is the hardest working man in podcasting and a hell of a dinner guest. Always love hanging out with Sam in person, not to mention that his stand-up is absolutely hilarious. Some of the other players that jumped in you may be more familiar with, such as Mel K, that we kind of ended the broadcast with. I do want to let everybody know that I will be on the Mel K show later on in this week, where we discuss a plethora of issues, including the Virginia Giuffre Roberts case and what we know, what we don't know. There is a new quote-unquote suicide note that's not actually a suicide note and not addressed as such, but I've seen people talking about it via headlines in the media. First time I was on a program with the Top Lobster. And Top Lobster, you can find most of his stuff, not just over on X, but on Rumble, where I think he's one half of, I hope I'm not getting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's one half of the Habibi Bros, and they have quite a following over there as well. And then, like you saw, Clint Russell, you've got Grimerica there, you've got so many individuals that refuse to just openly accept the narrative of the day. And at the same time, I think there is a lot of room for different ideas and different discussions. And really, that's what we want, right? We do not want to become cheerleaders without discernment. And I don't say that to knock other alternative media hosts or personalities, but I do my best, and I will continue to do my best, not to just break out my emotional jump to conclusions mat on subjects that I think that I have a great grasp on. Even if I have a great grasp on the subject matter, prior to me just going out off the cuff and saying something out of ignorance, really, I am going to take a look at as much of the baseline information as possible. Okay? And then I'm going to do my best to bring the public as much truthful information as I can muster. And really that goes back to the first part of the first section of this broadcast that aired the other day, when we were talking about fake news. And, Top Lobster's having a little fun with it. Let's just spread as much fake news as possible. But that's not what we need. What we really need is to call out the fake news from all sides. Stop parroting talking points that are on par with mainstream media talking points. We've got to get this idea, quote unquote, of an Epstein list out of the vernacular. There is no list. Let me repeat myself. There is no list. Epstein was not selling children or sexual experiences with children on his island. That wasn't the business. That's not how it worked. The vast majority were molested by Epstein himself, period. Now, would other people, be used up after the fact? Yes, but to get into this ring, Epstein was the doorway. And it was not a doorway where he was making money as a pimp. He was making money as a businessman, as an arms dealer, as somebody in banking, okay? Somebody invested in technology, somebody that was more than likely financially moving and funneling funds through NGOs. Call it tax evasion, call it whatever you want. Just don't call it a list. We've got hard drives. We've got books. We've got burned discs. We've got eyewitnesses. And we've got all sorts of private investigators that have looked into this case for money. And then, of course, police officers that have been utterly silenced. That's the reality. Folks, that is going to wrap it up. You know the drill. It is not about left or right. It is always about right and wrong. I absolutely love you guys, and we will see you all on the flip side.